Nice. Okay. What's up, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Another technical live stream today. And I'm excited because today we're talking about all the features from Wized. Okay. So today we're going to do a speed run of me trying to explain you what it's possible to do with Wized. So all the different features that are built into Wized. But before doing that, let's just say hello to everyone. So I see already a bunch of comments here. Hey, there's Shil. Good to see you. Hey, Greg. I wish you a happy Friday to all of you guys. And we're going to wait about 3 minutes. So in about 3 minutes, we're going to start. And meanwhile, feel free to share how was your week? How are you doing? Hey, Yasin. How's it going? For those who don't know, WizDeb, that channel that you see here commenting, he has a lot of resources related to Wiz, and I love his resources. You should go and check them out if you're interested in Wiz. And if you're watching this live stream, you probably are. So don't miss that out. Okay, cool. How was your week, guys? I'd love to know how's everyone doing. Yay, nice. Okay. So a couple minutes and we start. This is, how long has it been since we did the last open YouTube live stream? I think it was 3 weeks ago, something like that. So, okay, good. So today we're doing this live streaming again, and then any more technical, advanced, in-depth questions that you have from today, next week, we're gonna do a more in-depth Finsweet Plus session where we're gonna grab any questions that you have, and you'll be able to just ask me anything. So feel free to, if you're a Finsweet Plus user, remember that you can attend those live streams. I always miss people there. Sometimes we're a lot of people in the Finsweet Plus live streams, and sometimes people, we're not that many, which is still good because then less people have more attention from me. I can dedicate more time to everyone, but I encourage everyone who is a Finsweet Plus user to come there because I think that you can learn a lot, and it's something that you should take advantage of it. Marco, who was the person you just recommended for resources? It's that channel called Wized. So, Gabe, can you show a comment from Yasin from Wized there? Yeah, that one who's saying amazing. Go ahead and check out that YouTube channel because it's amazing. He has a lot of videos related to Wized. Hey, Samuel, good to see you. Okay, nice. One more minute, and then we are going to dive into Wized and all the features that you can use today. How about we start sharing the screen? So Gabe, if you can please share the screen. Nice. Okay, so the idea today is that we have about 55 minutes. And in those 55 minutes, I want to do a speed run trying to explain you all of the features from Wized. I don't know if we'll have enough time. So here you can see how I have my my own checklist of things that I want to talk about today. And this is just, I'll clarify about what we're talking, but you can see how there's a lot of things. Now, I want to make it clear. Today, I am not going to show you how to build X and Y and Z. Today, this is not a live stream where we're doing, hey, we are going to build a dashboard, or hey, we're going to build a marketplace, or whatever. We are not doing this today. Today, we're taking a different approach because today, I'm going to explain to you all the primitives, all the features that are in Wized, so then you can use them as a building block to create whatever you want. Okay, so today I'm not focusing on a specific goal of building something in particular. I'm gonna explain you the tools that you have inside Wized so you can build anything with it. Does that make sense? If yes, I don't know if you can give thumbs up in here, but you probably can leave a like in the in the YouTube video already. So hey, okay, we are gonna just start. Hey, Andrea, good to see you. Okay, great. So I'm just here in our landing page, and let's just start by doing a quick overview of what Wized is. And essentially, if you don't know it already, Wized is a tool that allows you to add any kind of interactivity on a Webflow site. So Webflow site, it's a static site. You have HTML, you have CSS. Maybe you have some animations with interactions, but that's it. Essentially, it's a static site and nothing special it's going on there. Wized, it's the layer that you would usually require using JavaScript to make your site interactive. So if you're trying to build any kind of interactivity, either if it's something very small, like a form that when submitted does a cool animation, or something big, like a full client dashboard, a full marketplace, like whatever you want to build, a web app, you can do all of that using either custom JavaScript if you build it yourself, using either a JavaScript framework, if you are exporting the HTML and CSS, some people do. Maybe I build a site, I designed it in Webflow, sorry, but then I want to write my own web application using React. Some people do that. Or you can use Wized, and Wized, it's like a JavaScript framework that it's specifically designed for Webflow. So Wized, it's a layer that goes on top of a Webflow site to make it interactive, to convert it to a web application. Okay, so now that we know what is Wized, you can, if you want to check this landing page, feel free to do it. But let's log in and let's start diving into all the features that you get when using Wized. We're going to create a project from scratch, and I'll try to be as fast as possible, but trying to at least explain things, because otherwise this stream is going to be pointless. And essentially, if you have any questions, if you think that I'm going too fast with something, if you think that I did not explain something well, let me know. Okay, I'll just take a step back and address it again. But I think that we are good. Glenn, I agree. Build anything. Yes, of course. And thank you, Glenn. Good to see you here. Hey, Himansu. Nice. Okay. You guys can also leave a like on the video, though. It really helps us. Yeah, thank you, Gabe. Yeah, of course. Nice. Okay, so we are now already in the dashboard. In my case, I have a lot of projects because I test a lot of things. But you probably, if you're starting from scratch, you don't have anything. So in the dashboard, you essentially just need to know there are two things. There are projects and there are workspaces. So in my case, I have two workspaces, which is the Alex workspace and these Wiz tutorials that I use to store tutorials, of course. And then I can also be a collaborator of other workspaces, because in Wiz, you can collaborate inside any workspace and any project inside that workspace. But in my case, I have my own workspaces, so I'm just going to use it, and I'm going to create a new project. So let's see what it takes to create a Wiz project. In my case, I already have some things pre-built in Webflow, so I don't bore you with all the building and designing. Everyone knows that I'm an amazing designer, so you don't need to spend some time watching that. I already built it. I have my own Webflow project, but you probably want to create a Webflow project first before creating a Wiz project. So I've got my own Webflow project here. And let's just create the project in Wized. I'm going to call this speedrun, like that. And what it's going to ask me, it's the staging domain. Okay, so for now, I'm going to skip this, and I'm going to choose the next version. Okay, right now, it's not the default, but soon it's going to be the default version. So if you're following with me, just focus on the next version, which is going to be the default version in a few weeks from now. So the first thing that I want to do is just copy this script. This is what is going to power your Webflow side. So when you polish this on Webflow, these scripts are going to load Wized, and it's what's going to convert your site from a static site to a web application. And you'll see now. So let's copy this. Let's come here. And in my case, I'm going to go to site settings. I know that I have the Finsweet Chrome extension, but let's not assume that everyone does. So I'm going to go here to custom code. Zoom in. And when the custom code section loads, which looks like it's taking a while, thank you, Webflow. And if not, we're going to use the Finsweet extension. Come on. Now, thank you. Okay, so we're going to slap those scripts that we just copied here from the project creation inside the head code. You can always do it in the footer, but I recommend you do it in the head. Wized, it's already smart. It loads asynchronously. It's not going to block anything. It's not going to affect your page performance. So publish the site. Nice. It's already publishing. And let's go back to the designer. Nice. One last thing that I'm missing now, it's giving the staging domain, which in my case, I'm just going to copy it from here. So copy a link address. Boom, that's it. So in my case, if you want to visit this after the live stream, it's stream-wiz-speedrun.webflow.io. So you have to add the webflow.io domain that you're using for your project, okay? So that's it. Create a project, and this is going to send us to the configurator. Nice. Cool. Okay, so we've got a fresh new Wized project. There's nothing here. We're going to do now a quick overview of everything that we got in the configurator. But before doing that, let me see if I have any questions. Hey, Ruben, nice to see you. Harsh is asking, I need to make a website from which anyone can book a movie ticket and see it. Can we do? Yes, we can do that in the future. So today I'm going to explain you, Harsh, how to use Webflow as a tool so you can start thinking how you would create this movie ticket booking system. Okay? Nice. Okay, Tori, good to see you. Nice. Benicio, good to see you. I thought this would be the X Atom stream. It's going to happen next week or in 2 weeks from now. We're going to confirm it, okay? But it's coming, don't worry. Nice, okay? And Cyprian, good to see you. Can you also show how to use embed code with extension? This later if you want. Okay, no worries. Okay. Am I frozen? Am I still rolling? I think I am, right? I think I do. Nice. Okay. So let's first of all scan what's going on here in the configurator because we've got a lot of buttons, but let's try to understand everything that's going on. So first of all, exactly like Webflow, we've got here our site. So in Webflow, you can design this site inside the canvas. And in Wized, we also have a canvas where you can also see the site and you can interact with it. Nice. So let's start here from the top bar. Here in the top bar, we've got a bunch of buttons. The first one that we are going to find is this Pages dropdown. If you work with Webflow, this is going to be very familiar with the Pages dropdown that it's also existing here in Webflow. So essentially, right now I just have one single page, so it's not like I can show you much, but you can see here all the pages and you can navigate through them. And those pages are going to load here in the canvas. Makes sense. Nice. So next button here, we've got a reload button. Okay, this reload button, it's just meant for reloading the page. So imagine that for any reason you want to test something when the page loads, you can always reload the page from here. Okay, so you quickly just hit it, reloads the page. Nice. Nice. Okay, so next button here, we've got the canvas. And inside this canvas, we can set up a bunch of things. First of all, we've got navigation. So imagine that you are navigating through your site here. If you want to go back and forth, you can do it through the canvas controls. So you can go back, you can go forward, or again, this button does exactly the same one as the one that I have here. It's just a way of reloading the canvas. But there's one additional thing, and it's that you can also load each page with query parameters. Because remember that in Wized, we want to build web applications with it. And query parameters are a nice part. It's a nice feature from Webflow, from browsers, from the websites that we can use in our advantage when building web applications. So imagine that, for example, I want to use something like, I want to load a site with, I don't know, ID 1234. We can do it here. And now the canvas here, it's going to load using that specific ID in the query parameters. Okay, so anytime that you want to test something with query parameters, you can do it through the canvas controls. I'm going to remove this and let's move on. Nice. Okay, so next button, we're going to switch to the right here. And we've got the X-ray. I'm going to click it and you're going to see that nothing is happening now. The reason nothing is happening now is because X-ray will always show you the elements, the Wized elements, the elements that we are interacting with in our web application. Okay, so now you're going to think probably like, okay, but what should I do? Like nothing is happening here. There's just one thing that you need to do in your Webflow project when creating web apps in Wized. And that's actually two things. The first, we already did it, was slapping the script tags in the project. That's okay, we did it. The next thing is that you need to identify which elements you want to work with when you are creating a Wized project. So imagine that, for example, we're going to do this in a second, but imagine that, for example, we want to dynamically change these elements' text. This means that, first of all, we need to tell Wized that this element exists. We need to identify this element somehow, okay? So the way that we do it, let's jump into the Webflow project. The way that we do it is by adding an HTML attribute to the element that it's very simple. It's just Wized, and then you can add any name that you want. In this particular case, I'm just gonna say my cool text, okay? You can write it however you want. You can do my cool text like this. You can do my cool text. You can do my cool text. It's completely up to you. There are no restrictions here, okay? In my case, I like using snake case, which is using underscores. So I'm going to use it, but completely fine. If you want to use a different naming system, it's completely up to you. Okay, so I've added this custom attribute. Remember that you just need to select the element, go to the settings panel in Webflow, and then in the custom attributes section, you can add Wized and the name of the element. Now, if we go back to the configurator, next to the X-ray mode, we've got another button that's called refresh attributes. This button, essentially what it does is it rescans your Webflow site looking for attributes. Because right now, if I activate X-ray, you can see how still we cannot see the element. But if we refresh the attributes, now that we've got a full scan of the project and we open X-ray, cool, look at that, we've got the element. Nice. So any element that has been identified as a Wized element, you can now interact with it inside Wized, and obviously it's going to show up here in X-ray. So I'm going to show you later, but essentially in X-ray, you can click on any element to create an action like that. Look at that. Now I'm creating an action for my cool text, but I don't want to get ahead of this. So I'm going to remove this, and let's continue looking at the buttons here. So first of all, we've got undo redo button, very convenient. So I could go back or I could just move forward. Very nice. Then here we've got the saving status. Okay. Same as Webflow, so nothing special. Anytime that you make any changes in the project, we are going to automatically save it for you. So you don't need to worry about, constantly hitting to save the project. Nice. And next button here, preview. It's just going to essentially send me to the Webflow site, the live site, which is loading a bit slow now. I don't know why. Okay, cool. Like that. So preview, you can always go and visit your Webflow site. And the last button that we've got here in the top bar, it's the publishing. Okay. And the publishing feature in Wized works a bit different of Webflow. You can always publish to a custom domain. Okay. Anytime that you want to ship something live to a custom domain, you can publish it exactly like you do in Webflow. So you come to the publish, you select the domain, and then you go ahead and publish. But anything that it's development, so anything that it's staging, it's published automatically. So you'll see now, but when I start creating actions and requests and stuff inside Wized, you don't need to be constantly publishing to be able to test it in the Webflow.io site. That is automatically handled for you. Okay, so publishing, it's always going to be automatic. You can see how it was published a few seconds ago. Or publishing to the live side, so shipping stuff to production, that happens manually. You click on it, you publish, you go live. Okay? Okay, great. So any questions so far? Let me see the comments here. Blankets Ray, yes. Loving your video. Oh, yeah, with that, Yasin makes great videos. I thought hyphens weren't allowed in attribute values. He meant, so that was a thing of the past. You can now use any name. It's completely fine. So if you prefer to use a different naming convention for Wized elements, it's completely fine. Feel free to do it. Great. Okay, so now that we know about the top bar, let's check the sidebar. Okay, everything related to managing our project happens here on the sidebar. So first first panel, we're going to have my apps. And we're going to talk about this later. But essentially, the apps are going to be the integrations with services like REST APIs or Firebase or Supabase or whatever you want to use. Okay, if we keep adding more integrations, that's also going to be available here in my apps. Okay, and all apps are then used by requests. We'll see that later. So next thing, it's actions. And actions define all the actions that happen on your site. That can go from something very basic like changing an element's text to something very complex like waiting for the page to be loaded and then under a specific condition doing X, Y, and Z. Like all the interactivity, all the actions that happen on your site are going to be defined in this panel. The next thing is requests. So anytime that you want to communicate with a server, so if you want to send some data, if you want to load some data, if you want to mutate data, whatever you want to communicate with your server, it's going to happen here in requests. And then we just got some settings for the project. In this particular case, we've got, we can see the usage. We can see if we want to delete branding, if you've got a paid plan for that, you can tweak the domains. You can, if for any reason you can, you want to grab again the embed code, so the script tags, you can find them here. We also have backups that we do automatically for you. And you can preview a backup. Right now, I don't have any, but we can check it later. So you can preview a backup. You can restore a backup. Very convenient. You can share a project with a read-only link. Also very convenient. By the way, let's just enable it and send it here in the chat in case that somebody wants to check it out. I'm giving this to you, Gabe. So if you can send it to the YouTube channel, that would be nice. And then you can enable if you want to clone a project. So people can just start a project cloning yours, and then you can delete a project, of course. Okay, nice. So next thing, it's going to be the data store. This data store, it's one key piece of your project because it contains all the data of your project. Okay, so anything related to storing the current state, storing whatever the user inputted, storing specific cookies, storing the data that was submitted through a form, like anything related to the data that currently defines your application, it will be handled from here. And don't worry, we're going to see how things can be created and interacted with inside here. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to move on, but we'll see each one of these sections later. Then we've got a debugger, and the debugger is essentially a tool that we've got inside Wized to tell you when something doesn't look right. So if for any reason an attribute is missing, or if for any reason you have set up the wrong script tags, or anything that we can find out that it's not correct, the debugger is going to tell you. Okay, so keep an eye on the debugger in case that there are some things highlighted there. Next thing, you can always get in touch with our support team. We've got a full team of people willing to help you, and these are real people. So we don't have a AI bot. We've got real people behind this chat who you can ask anything, okay? That's the power of Wiz, and we don't make you pay for it. Just feel free to ask us any question. Our team will be very happy to help you with it. Next thing, you can always click and access our documentation directly from here. So anytime that you want to read about specific topic here, you can just access it through the documentation button in here. And the last thing is that we've got a dedicated videos panel. So inside this panel, we've got a few tutorials that you can just check out, because I think that there are some cool things in there. So you can open a video, you can even keep working on the project while watching the video, which is convenient. And we'll keep adding more and more videos in this panel. So I recommend that everyone checks it out. And the last thing, you can change the dark mode or light mode. Okay, completely up to you. I'm going to leave it as light mode. Nice. Okay, so let me just check if I'm doing well here. We've talked about all of this. Nice, nice, nice. Reload, canvas, X-ray, refresh attributes. Nice, nice. Okay, we're going quick. Sidebar, overview. Okay, so it's time to start building stuff. It's time to start looking into what you can do with Wized. Before doing that, let me check the comments here. Love how easy it is. It is, yeah. It is very easy. Okay, video life is lit. Yeah, Yeah, it's very convenient, and sometimes people doesn't realize that there's the videos panel there. So that's why I'm telling you. I recommend you check it out. Urban Pixel is asking, do we have to integrate a calendar app if we are creating a booking system, a multi-service business, like a veterinary clinic with multiple services, or will the calendar be built inside Wized? Probably it's not going to be built unless it's a plugin. We are working on a plugin system. Maybe it's going to be a plugin, but you don't have to wait for a plugin to come, because I cannot tell you right now if there's a date for that. But you can always interact with any third-party libraries with Wized. That's the power of Wized, that it's not only it not only gives you what it's already built in here, but it's also extensible. It's developer friendly. We've got a full JavaScript API that you can use to interact with like a calendar library. If we have time, I'll talk about that. But first of all, let's go and start creating stuff. So as I mentioned before, we can always rely on X-Ray. So let's start by creating a few actions. So I've got my cool text here. Let's do something with it. So first of all, here, I'm going to create an action. All I did was just click on the X-ray here. So I've got this button, nice. And inside here, we can define whatever actions we want for this specific element. Okay. So let's just start by doing a very simple set text. So you can see here, I've got my element selected and I'm setting text. I can decide what type of text I want to set. In this particular case, just plain text, all good. And all it's left now, it's defining what should the value of the text be. So now the scary part happened, and it's we opened the function editor. Now, stay with me. Don't worry. For now, let's do this. Return, hey, like that. Okay? I'm going to explain this in a second. But look at this. Check what happened now. We already have our text here. So everything happens dynamically in Wized. You don't need to be refreshing. You don't need to do anything. We just change stuff here. And now we've got our application automatically updated with the new state. Nice. So very basic action. We are setting text. And in this particular case, we are setting just this string. Nice. So now let's talk about the function editor. Every time that you need to define a value in Wized, whatever reason, setting text, setting a class name, rendering a list, showing or hiding an element, creating a variable, whatever, everything that every time that you define something that expects you to return a value, you are going to encounter this function editor. Okay, this is a JavaScript function. You can write any real JavaScript inside here, and it's going to expect you to return something from it. That's it. If you understand this concept, you already know 80% enough for writing stuff inside the function editor. Inside these functions, you can do whatever code you want, whatever, and then you want to return something. And that thing that you return is what's going to be always used as the value, like that. Now, this is very simple. I know we're just doing this return one. Let's just go back and say hello world, like that. But like this is hard coded. Like we just have a string here. How do we make this dynamic, right? So now let's talk about reactivity in Wized. Let's talk about what happens when things are more dynamic, right? So to do this, later I'm gonna do a full walkthrough of the data store. But for now, let's create a variable so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's create a variable, and in this particular case, I'm gonna say count. Okay, this variable is gonna be a counter, so we can increment it, for example. And the initial value in this case, you can see how, again, this is expecting a value, so I need to return something from the function. This initial value, it's going to be 0. That's it. So if we go back to my action, remember that you don't need to be navigating here. You can always open X-Ray and click on the elements. If we go back to my action and check this in here, let me refresh 1 second. I want to check something. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so if we come here and edit this function, now I can access my variables from here. So look at this. This function provides me with all the data that I showed you from the data store. which we have here. So we've got variables, we've got navigation, cookies, secrets, input fields, forms. We'll talk about everything. But the key part is that we've got access to all of these things inside our function. So we've got the cookies data, we've got the forms data, we've got the inputs data, navigation data, requests data, trigger data, variables data, etc. Okay, so in this particular case, I want to access the variable that I just created. So I'm just going to say v dot, and you can see how Wized, it's smart, is already telling me, hey, you've got a variable that's called count. So you might want to use this. So I'm going to use this v.count. And now, check this out. Now we are using the value from the variable. Nice. I know that it's not very mind-blowing because we just have a number 0 here, but now we are using a dynamic value. That's the key part. We're using a variable, and that variable, it's dynamic. So to see what I'm talking about, let's create another action. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Webflow, and I want to also start using this button here. So let's create a Wized attribute for the button, and let's gonna say increment, like that. I'm gonna even change this, and it's not gonna be no longer my cool text. It's gonna be count display. So we've got meaningful names throughout our application, which makes sense. Okay, nice. So now, first of all, I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna rescan the project, and we're gonna see something. Hey, look at that. We've got the debugger telling us, hey, you defined an action with a cool text, but we cannot find that. So you might want to check it out. That's the cool thing of the debugger. It's gonna tell you when something goes wrong. So let's fix this issue. Let's go back here, and in this case, I want to use the my count display. Okay, I'm also gonna change this to count display just to make things organized like that. Cool, and we're back to square one. Nice. Looks like there's something wrong here because it should be updated. So I'm gonna look at that, but this should be clear. I'm gonna check it later. Maybe we're gonna even refresh just for the sake of not having that error show up there. Okay, nice. Cool, I'm gonna fix that later. So cool display here. Now let's open X-Ray, and we can have already an action for the increment button. Let's see here. I'm gonna click on it, increment, nice. So what I wanna do now is when I click on the button, I wanna update the variable. That's it. So I'm gonna come back here to actions. We are targeting the increment element, and I'm gonna say on event. We can listen for any event. I'm going to deep dive into this later. But in this case, I'm going to use a click event. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to set a variable. So anytime that you've got an event happening, if it's an element or if it's a page event, we can always then do actions after that. So we can perform a request, we can set a cookie, we can set a variable, we can navigate to something, or we can just run a function. So in this case, I want to set a variable. Nice. And this variable is going to be vcount. And what I want to do is I want to take vcount and I want to increment it by 1. Now, remember what is happening here in the function editor. The function editor is expecting me to return something. And that something, it's got to be count plus 1, right? Because I want to increment it by 1. So all I have to do is say return, v.count plus 1. That's it. So when it's 0, it's going to return 1. When it's 1, it's going to return 2, blah, blah, blah. So nice, looking nice. So look at this. That's it. Now we're making things dynamic. Okay, that's the beauty of Wized, that everything is reactive. So if we go back to the count display, remember that all we are doing is telling Wized, hey, this element should always be populating the text with the value of vcount. That's it. You don't need to worry about listening for when vcount changes, getting the value of vcount, re-rendering the element like you would do normally with JavaScript if you were building this yourself. You don't need to do it. Wized, it's your JavaScript framework that does it for you. So in this particular case, because we're stating that we want to use vcount for the text, when we increment that text, it's going to be re-rendered again. Does that make sense? I'm going to check the comments here. The Preact signals, it's powerful. Well, we use signals they are not preact signals, but we use signals for this. Yes, which is very performant. There's one live stream that I talked about this. If you're interested in how Wized was built, you can always go ahead and check out that live stream. Theodore is asking, is there any way to copy and paste all attributes in Webflow, any app or extension which can do that? Not sure. So we've got a Wized app that help you adding attributes to elements, but I think that we can talk about it in a different live stream because today I'm not going to have time. But yeah, there are extensions for that. Nice. Okay, so I guess that's something like that variable in Webflow Marketplace. Oh, okay, nice. So Benish, you're asking if there's some kind of marketplace where you can just copy variables and stuff like that. That's gonna come. That's in our roadmap. It's not right now existing, but we're gonna have things like this where you can just grab third-party created functions or actions or variables and stuff like that. It's gonna come. Nice. Okay, so let's move on. We've got here set text, function editor, reactivity, set variable, nice, and set text dynamic. Okay, cool. So let's keep doing stuff with it. So how about we do some visibility? So I'm just gonna go again to this element. Remember that inside an action, so right now I have an action for my count display, you can create as many sub-actions you want, okay? And it's always gonna be free for you. Like you don't need to worry about how many actions you add inside here. We don't count those actions. You just need to worry about the amount of actions that you have in this side panel, okay? That's important. So here in actions, right now we have the text, but let's do some more conditional logic. Let's say that, for example, we want to set the visibility of this element, and I want it to be visible whenever b count is less than 10, or less than 100, less than 10, whatever, like that. So right now it's hidden, you can see it, I know. If we refresh, it's visible, but if I click now, when I go, and I go higher than 10, this element is being hidden. And the reason is because we have set visibility defined like this. Set visibility, you define the condition when the element should be visible. Nice. So let's move on. Let's do something else. Let's do set style. And let's do something like, I don't know, what could we do? Let's do font size. And let's do return. And I want to have the b count ramps like that. So check this out. This is something new that I didn't explain before, but this is JavaScript as always. This is a way that this is called a template literal in JavaScript, and it's a way of creating a string with a value inside it. Okay, you can look it up. It's called template literal, like that. Okay, so if we do this, now we are setting the font size of this element based on the amount of b count. I know that it's not very convenient, but that's how it works. Let's actually start not from 0. Let's start with 1 in the variable. So so we can see the element initially. Nice. Click, click, click. Nice. Cool. Okay, more things. Let's do also in this same element action, we are setting the text, we're setting the visibility, we're setting the style. So in this case, it's font size, but you can use any custom style. It's up to you. Let's also add a class. So let's set a class, and the class name, it's going to be, I don't know, what class name could I use from client first? Like text, color, property? No, text, color, alternate? What is that? No. Text, color, secondary? Oh my God, I don't have anything. Text, color, no, text, what can I do? Text, style muted? Yeah, let's do this text style muted, for example. Okay, so let's go back to Wized. I want to define the class name called text style muted. And how about we say, hey, I want you to add this class to the element whenever count it's higher than 5, so we can see it. So now we've got that. Let's Let's start clicking, click, click, click. And now we've got the class added to it. So we could expect it, but you can see how the text color changed a bit. Nice. Okay, more things. So we've got set visibility, set style, set class, set text. Oh yeah, we can talk about setting text because there are more ways of setting text. But hold on, let me check. So set class. What else? What else? Set HTML attribute. We could do that too. So we can update any attribute, same as you would do, for example, inside Webflow, doing custom attributes. You can also do it with Wized, but it's going to be dynamic. So imagine that we want to do data count, and this data count you could be vcount, for example. So anytime that vcount changes, the data count attribute is going to change. So if we preview this, so I can show you guys with the elements here, and we inspect the element like that. Check this out. We've got data count here like that. And if we keep incrementing, look at that. Look at that. So this data count is again reactively changing based on the count because we defined it in Wized. Nice. Great. Okay, what else? We can do more things. We can do add a parameter to a link, although we don't have a link. We could render a list, although I'll talk about it in a second. And we can do more on events. Let's go back to the text in here, and let's do, just so I can show you, let's do, instead of vcount for a second, let's do some markdown. So let's do, hey, like that. And instead of using plain text, now I want to use markdown. And look at that. What's going to happen now is that this is now an H1. So if you're not familiar with Markdown, you probably don't care, but you can use Markdown to render stuff. So maybe you want to do something like title 1. Whoops, sorry. Title 1 and some text, and title 2 and some more text. And let's do a link. And this link, it will be like this. So this is Markdown. This is not something really made up by Wized. Markdown, it's a way of defining text with this syntax in here. So now that we've got this Markdown here, look at that. We've got all of that. So it's very convenient when you're rendering data from a server, etc., when it's a rich text. Or we could do some HTML, for example. And maybe from this HTML, we want to return HTML, like H1, title, and page 1, like that. And now that we are using HTML like that, here we always gonna see the HTML rendered. Very convenient. Nice. Okay, cool. But let's go back to plain text. Let's just give it a return vcount like that. Nice. And remember that always is gonna be updated for you automatically. Okay, let me check the comments here. Don't forget to mention the hidden feature for the events. Oh yeah, Yasin. I'm gonna talk about that later. Okay, some decoration suggestions here. Sometimes we wanted to do complex stuff, so we need to use custom code, correct? You can always use custom code inside Wized. Nice. Okay, cool. If you have any questions, remember that you can ask them, and I'll just try to address them. Okay, so let's move on. Here, I've got this set text HTML attribute error parameter. I'm going to skip it because I don't have a link tag defined. But essentially, you could also, if you're interacting with an element that is a link, you can also change query parameters of a link. Or you can also interact with input and forms. So let's go to the next section here, and let's check this form populating. We can interact with single inputs, so a single input, or you can interact with entire forms with Wized. So let's go and in Webflow and define these things. I'm going to define this input, settings, custom attributes. This is going to be Wized, and it will be whatever, my input. I don't know, like that. And we also want to define the form. Okay, so when you interact with entire forms, you want to select the form element. Okay, it's important, not the form block, the form element. So I'm gonna select this form element and custom attribute again with and my form, for example. Cool. Let's publish this. go back to Wized, refresh attributes, nice. And now in X-ray, we've got this. Cool. So my input, let's create an action for it. And let's say that we want to dynamically add a input value to it, like that. So return, hey, cool. So now that we've got this, look at that. My input now contains my value, right? So I can also, for example, use anything dynamic from Wized. So if I have my v count, for example, like that, now I've got this single input, and check this out. Anytime that I change this, it's also going to change here because I'm referencing v count. Everything is reactive in Wized. Very powerful. Cool. So we've got this single input that's being populated automatically with my value. Nice. Later, I'm going to show you how to interact with the input value. So right now we are populating the input, but we can also read the input value. Because if I change something here, maybe I want to, get this value and work with it. Okay, cool. Or we can interact with entire forms. Now, when working with entire forms, it's a bit more different because it's not going to expect, let me open X-ray, it's not going to expect you to return a single value. It's going to expect you to return all the values from all the elements in the form. So I'm going to say set form values here. And what we need to do is we need to return, again, we always return stuff. Remember that you can always do whatever and then return anything. So you don't need to start by returning something. It's completely up to you. But I'm going to return here. And what I want to do is return an object. So in JavaScript, we can create an object. We can define an object by opening brackets and closing brackets. And inside this object, we want to define keys and values. The keys are going to be the names of the inputs, and the values are going to be the values of the inputs. So if we go to the Webflow site and we inspect what we have here, we've got a text field, we've got an email field, and we've got a checkbox like that. So the text field for the name, it has a name of name. For the email field for the email, we've got a name of email. And the checkbox has a name of professional. Don't ask me why. I just came up with this name. Okay, so we want to populate this form dynamically. What we do is we grab these names and we put them inside this object. So I'm going to say name, it will be Alex. Good to meet you. Email, it's going to be alex@example.com. And professional, it's going to say true. It's going to guess that I'm professional, okay? You have to define the values depending on the type of input that you have. For example, the checkbox, it's going to be either true or false, but the name or email are going to be are going to be strings because we're dealing with strings in this case. So if we check this, now we should have our form populated with our data in here. Nice. Okay. Any questions so far? I think not. Good. Okay, great. So we're populating inputs, we're populating forms. Let's just jump into list rendering. That's the last key part of basic actions. So list rendering here, I want to grab this and I want to replicate it multiple times depending on whatever data I have, right? So let's first of all define this element in here. Let's go back to Wized. Let's define, and I'm gonna call this Wized equals to list item. Okay, I'm not gonna be creative here. That's it. So I want to grab this list item, and this list item is going to be the template for all the items that I'm going to render in the list. Does that make sense? So here, let's refresh the attributes. Nice. Let's check out X-ray, and we've got the list items. I'm going to create an action for it. And the setting, it's going to be render list, like that. So when you define a list, there are two things that Wized is going to ask you. The first thing is that you need to pass it the data, which you're going to render the list from. And this data, it's going to be always an array. You need to have an array with multiple items. It can also be maps and sets, but I'm not going to go deep into that. So for now, I'm just going to create something very basic. I'm going to say return an array. And this array is going to be 1, 2, and 3, like that. Okay. Another cool thing that I forgot is that you can always inspect if you're writing the right code here by inside the function editor, clicking on the play button. And this, it's going to tell me what is being returned from this specific function. And in this case, I'm doing it right. The other cool button that we've got here is this prettify. In case that you want to prettify some code, imagine that I mess up the formatting in here. It's looking very ugly. You always can prettify the code using this button. Nice. Okay, cool. So now that we've got an array with multiple items, exactly 3 items, I want to render this list. Actually, we're rendering the list, but I need to do something extra. I need to define a variable for index, and that will make sense in a second. So first of all, let's create this variable. I'm going to use a new variable. I'm going to call it I. It could be whatever. It could be index. It could be blah, blah, blah. Completely up to you. So I'm going to say I. And you don't need to worry about initial value at all. Just for the sake of keeping things understandable, I like to start with a 0, but it really doesn't matter. You can completely omit this initial value. So now that we've got this I thing, now if we reload the page, rendering a list requires reloading the page. Nice. So you can see how now we have 3 items. Cool. So we are dynamically rendering this item based on the data that we've got here. So if I go to this item here, we've got this 1, 2, and 3. Now, of course, this doesn't look right because I have the elements rendered. I have my list rendered. But now what I have to do is also define how do I populate each one of the items, right? In this particular case, I just have a single text element for each item on the list. So I want to populate 1, 2, and 3 for each item. So what I have to do is, instead of, first of all, hold on, X-ray, let's open this. So first of all, instead of having this in here, for convenience, I'm going to put it in a variable. So let's move this back to a variable. And now, first time that I'm showing you the data store, let's create a variable here. And this, it's going to be list data, whatever. Okay. And we are going to pass this array in the initial value. So whenever we reload the page, you will see how the initial value here, it's my array that I just created. So let's go back to my action of the list item. And in here, instead of using this array, let's use b.listData. Nice. And now that I'm referencing my list data, and I also have a variable that defines the index of each item. So this item, it's going to be the index 0. This item is going to be the index 1. This item is going to be the index 2, etc. You'll see now where I'm heading. So what I can do now is I can add another thing, for example, like set text. And this set text, I want to grab the specific text for each item. And that's where the variable for index comes, because I can say return v dot list data, and then using square brackets, which is a JavaScript thing, you can open square brackets, and I can say, you could say, for example, just give me the data of the first item. And if we do this, now what's going to happen is that we are going to get just the data of the first item, right? But we don't want to hard code that. We don't want to define the data just of one item. We want to define the data of each item. So here, X-ray, list item, instead of doing this, which is 0 would be the first item in the array, I'm going to say v.I, like that. And now, because this b.I will be dynamic, it will be updated for each item, this is going to represent the dynamic data of each item inside the variable. I think that this is the most confusing, like overall, the thing that might be a bit more tricky when working with. But once you get this, once you get that accessing the data of a specific item in a render list, it's done using the variable for index, that's it. You have now like full control. You have freedom of doing anything. And look at that. Now we've got 1, 2, and 3 because this is going to be index 0. This is going to be index 1. This is going to be index 2. And Wized handles that for us using the variable for index. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat here. There's people with questions. So, how to set file with set form values? You can set a file with set form values, but you need to grab that file first. So it's a bit more advanced, but well, actually, I don't know if you can update a file using JavaScript. I'm going to say that I will confirm about setting files into forms in another live stream, okay? Because I want to double check before giving you the wrong info. Andrew Luter is saying, I have implemented over 400 actions in one of my Wized projects. I'm interested in exploring different methods to consolidate multiple text actions, each with varying attributes, into a single action. Yes, nice. We can do these kind of things in another live stream because I have still a lot of things to talk about. And one of the things that I wanted to do was exactly that. I had another section of more complex element actions. And in there, I had an example of using the T keyword. So I have realized that we are still missing quite a lot of things here because we've done this and this and this and this and this. And we are yet to talk about all of this. Oh my God, so many things. Okay, so we'll see in the next live stream probably. You can merge actions. Yeah, there are smart ways of merging actions. Can one create a new static page or Webflow CMS item using Wized? For example, user submits a form that creates a CMS item. You can do it, but you cannot do it just with Wized. You can do it with Wized and a server. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, but I just realized that they didn't have enough time. And it's that with Wized, not only you can interact with elements on the page, you can also send data and retrieve data from servers. So imagine that, for example, somebody submits a form and you want to create an item. You would have a server that it's not managed by Wized. Wized, it's completely just managing the website. It's not managing what's happening in the backend. So you would create your server, and inside that server, you would implement an endpoint that gets the data and then ships that data to Webflow. Okay, but that's a topic for another live stream because obviously today we are almost done already. Nice. With Webflow logic, it's far simple. Yes, I mean there are things that you can do natively with Webflow, so you probably want to stick with Webflow. Like for example, using Webflow logic to create a CMS item. That's very convenient. Yeah, thank you, Yasin. You can set files due to browser security issues. That's probably true. I need to double check that, but I think that you're right, Yasin. I think you're right. A WKD, Alex, you should add that accessing an object property using square brackets is the same as using a dot. Just that if the property you want to access is dynamic, you have to use square brackets. Yes, that's a good point. Gabe, can we screen share again? I want to emphasize on that. So if we go to the list rendering here, list item, in this particular case, we're using square brackets because it's a dynamic variable or because it's a numeric number. So usually the way that you access things in objects in JavaScript, it's in two ways. You can either do a dot, and then you can see all the properties and methods of the object, or you can do square brackets, and you can do the same thing. So if I open this here, you can see how I can get the same thing like that. And when you use dynamic variables, you always have to use square brackets. I know that it might sound scary, but that's it. All you need to know now of JavaScript to use with is that you need to return stuff using the return keyword. It's that you can access the data store like objects. So here, if I had anything, I could do c dot whatever or I dot my input. You can see how I have my input, or f dot my form, and I can even access each of the fields of my form. Look at that. I'm always using the dot notation in this case. Or whoops, or like that, if you're using a dynamic variable, you use the square notation. That's it. Then you can go more in depth, of course. You can use custom logic like if, true, else, whatever. And here you could return different things like, hey, or return blah. In this case, it's all true is always going to be true. So it's always going to return this. But you could say, for example, let's do something different. Let's do if b count it's higher than 5, let's return too high. else, whoops, else, let's return the list data like that. So if else's are another basic thing that you can do inside Wized. It's also JavaScript, but you can do dynamic conditions based on whatever you want to do. So in this case, for example, I'm rendering list, I have this, but now if I go and click, 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 look at that, too high. And the reason is because we have a dynamic condition here that displays the text, sets the text, so returns text dynamically based on this condition in particular. Okay, nice. So I know that there are many more things that I want to talk about, and I've got this list here. So I think that next Friday we're doing a second live session. And because I started doing this live for everyone, I think that next session it's probably going to be also open session. So it's not going to be a Finsweet Plus session. It's going to be an open session here on YouTube. And the next session, we're going to go deep into questions for any Finsweet Plus user who wants to have a session one-on-one with me, or one-on many, but like a private session with me. Okay. So gather those questions. That's you can ask them in that upcoming session. So I think that for today, that is it. I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone. I appreciate a lot everyone coming here. Hopefully you learned a couple things from Wized and you can start using those small building blocks to create cool things in your Webflow projects. And as I mentioned, next live stream, next Friday, it's going to be the second part. It's going to be these missing pieces here. So see you next Friday. If you haven't already, please leave a like or share this video. It helps a lot. And that's it. Have a good weekend, everyone. Goodbye. Yeah, Exatom is going to come.